Borobudur is not a temple book. Section 8. Santo Saba works. Created as a discourse to scientists based on subjective academic studies and studies, this needs to be re-examined by experts in their fields. In an effort to restore the true history of Indonesia. INDONÉSIARYÄ. By Santo Saba. Exploration and research. Complete info. Waatsap to +62813 2132 9787. Apart from Borobudur, there are several temples in this area. During the discovery and restoration period in the early 20th century, other temples were found, namely Mended Temple and Prambanan Temple, which stretched out in a straight line. At first it was thought to be a coincidence, but based on local residents, there used to be a stone-lined road lined with balustrades on both sides that connect the three temples. These three temples, Borobudur, Prambanan, and Mended, have similar architectural styles and decorations and are indeed from the same period, which strengthens the suspicion of a ritual connection between the three temples. There must be a sacred connection, but how the process of the pilgrimage religious rituals is carried out is not certain. Apart from Mended and Prambanan temples, around Borobudur there are also several other ancient relics, including various pottery findings such as pots and jugs, which indicate that around Borobudur there used to be several residential areas. Archaeological finds around Borobudur are now stored at the Karmawibanga Borobudur Museum, which is located to the north of the temple next to the Samudra Raksa Museum. The naming of Karmawibanga is an Indian version that should be clarified. Sangharama Maha Thupa Parathera Wana Chaka Phala is now published named Borobudur. The language and philosophy of the teachings that underlie it are native to the archipelago. The basic reliefs are not exposed. There are 160 relief panels published with the name Karmawibanga, using the interpretation of the Mahakarmawibanga manuscript, but they do not fully follow the text. Burnett Kemper's 1970-151 in 1976. Not far to the north of Prambanan Temple are the ruins of a former temple called Candi Banan. In this temple, several statues were found which were considered by the gods to be in quite good condition, namely Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma, and Ganesha. However, the original stone of Banan Temple was found so little that it was impossible to reconstruct it. At the time of its discovery, the Banan statues were transported to Batavia, now Jakarta, and are now stored in the National Museum of Indonesia. The eruption of Mount Merapi is thought to be the main cause of the abandonment of Borobudur. Borobudur was hidden and neglected for centuries, buried under a layer of volcanic soil and dust, which was then overgrown with trees and shrubs, so that Borobudur at that time really resembled a hill. The real reason why Borobudur was abandoned is still unknown. This sacred building is mentioned vaguely around the year 1365, by Mpu Prapanka in his Nagarakretagama manuscript, which was written during the Majapahit kingdom. He mentioned the existence of a temple in Budur. In addition, Sokmano 1976 also proposed a popular opinion that this temple began to be completely abandoned since the local population converted to Islam in the 15th century. Architecture. Borobudur is a masterpiece of Indonesian fine arts, as an example of the pinnacle of achieving harmony in architectural techniques and aesthetics of fine arts in Java. This building is believed to be a continuation of local elements. The megalithic structures of Pundan terraces or terraced pyramids found from the prehistoric period of Indonesia are considered as worship of the ancestors. Design concept. There are three kinds of nature in the indigenous beliefs of the archipelago as mentioned in the Sundanese Wiwitan mythology. 1. Wana Nyangkung, the place where Sang Hyang Kursa resides, which is at the top. 2. Wana Pangka Tenga, the dwelling place for humans and other creatures, it is located in the middle. 3. Wana Larang, hell, it is located at the bottom. Between Wana Nyangkung and Wana Pangka Tenga there are 18 natural layers arranged from top to bottom. The top layer is named Bumi Suki Alam Padang, or according to Kropak 630 is named Alam Kayangan or Mandala Hyang. The second highest realm is the realm where Nyi Pahachi Sanghyang Asri and Sunan Ambu live. Sanghyang Kursa lowered 7 Batara at Sasaka Pusaka Wana. One of the 7 Batara is Batara Chikal, the oldest, who is considered the ancestor of the Kanix people. Other descendants are Batara who rule in various other areas in the land of Sunda. The meaning of Narungkyun, lowering, Batara is not giving birth but creating or creating. This is what underlies the writer that Borobudur Temple is not a Hindu or Buddhist temple, it is a place of ritual worship of Lord Ra, the sun god, where at the top of the temple, which is arranged on the same shape in almost all large temples, namely Pandan Barandik, while in the process of refining Borobudur Temple, which consists of 3 stacking, is based on 3 stages of Wana, namely 1. Wana Nyangkung. Sanghyang Kursa's place of residence, the part of which is located at the top of the temple. 2. Wana Panka Tenga. The dwelling place for humans and other creatures, the middle part of the temple. 3. Wana Larang. Hell, located at the bottom, the base of the temple. Wana Chaka Phala is now published as Borobudur. Once again, the author emphasizes that the temples in Java did not originate from Hinduism or Buddhism originating from India, but temples in Java were temples made by our own ancestors. The philosophy, understanding or teachings of a religion always contain elements that are expressed and implied. The explicit elements are what is clearly stated as a pattern of life to be lived, while what is implied is a comprehensive understanding of the teaching. The teachings of Sundanese Wiwitan basically depart from 2 principles, namely the way of human character and the way of the nation. Wana Larang. Hell, it is located at the bottom, the base of the temple. The basic square plan measures 123 meters, 404 feet, on each side. This building has 9 terraces, the bottom 6 terraces are square and the top 3 are circular. This section is mostly covered by piles of stones thought to have been made to strengthen the temple's construction. In the original part of the foot, which is covered with additional structures, there are 160-story panels considered or interpreted by the Indian version called Karmawibanga, which is now hidden. A small part of the additional structure in the southeast corner is set aside so that one can still see some relief in this section. The additional foot andesite stone structure covering this real leg has volume 13,000 cubic meters. Wana Panka Tenga. The dwelling place for humans and other creatures, the middle part of the temple. 4 terraced steps that form a perimeter hallway decorated with relief galleries on the walls. The floor is square in shape. The area consists of 4 aisles with 1,300 relief images. The overall relief length is 2.5 kilometers with 1,212 decorative engraved panels. Originally there were 432 statues in open recesses along the outer side of the balustrade. On the ledge fence there is a slight difference in design which symbolizes the transition from the realm. The lowest ledge fence is crowned pearl, while the 4 levels of balustrade above it are crowned stupika, small stupa. The rectangular terraces are rich in decoration and relief carvings. Circle floor plan. This level represents the upper realm, where humans are free from all desires and bonds of form, but have not yet reached nirvana. In the circular courtyard there are 72 small Tarawang stupas arranged in 3 rows surrounding one large stupa as the main stupa. Wana Nyangkung. Sanghyang Kursa's place of residence, the part of which is located at the top of the temple. This small bell-shaped stupa is arranged in 3 circular terraces, each of which consists of 32, 24, and 16, a total of 72 stupas. The 2 lower terraces of the stupa are larger with rhombic-shaped holes, the upper one of the terraces is slightly smaller and the holes are in the shape of a square. The statues are placed inside the stupa, which is closed with holes like in a cage. From the outside, the statues are still vague. This design intelligently explains the concept of a transition to a state of being immaterial, that is, the statue exists but is invisible. In this largest stupa, an imperfect statue was ever found. Building structure. The cross-section of the Borobudur Temple has a 4:6:9 ratio between the legs, body, and head. The Borobudur staircase climbs through a series of carved kalamakara gates. Approximately 55,000 cubic meters of andesite rock were transported from the stone quarry in brackets to build this monument. These stones are cut to specific sizes, transported to the site and joined without using cement. The Borobudur structure does not use cement at all, but rather an interlock system, which is like Lego blocks that can stick together without adhesive. These stones are held together with proper protrusions and holes and fit into one another, as well as a dovetail shape that locks the 2 blocks of stone. Reliefs are made on site after the building structure and walls are completed. This monument is equipped with a drainage system that is good enough for areas with high rainfall. To prevent inundation and flooding, 100 showers are installed at every corner, each with a unique design in the shape of a giant kala or makara head. Borobudur is very different from other temple designs. This temple is not built on a flat surface, but on a natural hill. However, the construction technique is similar to other temples in Java. Borobudur does not have worship rooms like other temples. What exists is long alleys which are narrow roads. Walled alleys surround the temple level by level. In general, the design of Borobudur is similar to a step pyramid. In these halls, at first, Borobudur may have functioned more as a stupa, rather than a shrine or temple. The stupa was intended as a sacred building. Sometimes a stupa is built as a symbol of respect and honor. Meanwhile, shrines or temples function more as houses of worship. The intricate design of this monument shows that this building was indeed a place of worship. The form of the building is possible to have rooms and terraced structures. This is thought to be a development of the Pundan terraced form, which is an original architectural form from prehistoric Indonesia. The structure of the building can be divided into three parts: base, legs, body, and top. The base measures 123 by 123 meters, 403.5 by 403.5 feet, and 4 meters 13 feet high. The body of the temple consists of 5 smaller, rectangular terraces on it. The first terrace retreated 7 meters, 23 feet, from the bottom end of the terrace. Each subsequent terrace retreated 2 meters, 6.6 feet, leaving narrow passageways at each level. The upper part consists of 3 circular terraces, each level supporting a row of concentrically arranged stupas. There is the largest main stupa in the center, with chutes reaching 35 meters, 115 feet, above the ground. The original height of Borobudur, including the chhatra, triple stacking umbrella, which has now been released, is 42 meters, 138 feet. The stairs are located in the middle of the 4 cardinal points that take visitors to the top of the monument through a series of arched gates guarded by 32 statues of lions. The gate wicket is decorated with kala carvings on the top of the empty door and makara carvings that stand out on both sides. The kala makara motif is common in the architecture of temple doors in Java. The main door is located on the east side, as well as the starting point for reading relief stories. This straight staircase continues to be connected with a ladder on the hillside that connects the temple with the surrounding plains. Relief. On the temple walls at each level, bas-relief panels are carved with great care and refinement. The reliefs and decorative patterns of Borobudur in a naturalist style with ideal proportions and subtle aesthetic taste. These reliefs are very beautiful, even considered the most elegant and graceful in art. Relief Borobudur also applies art discipline, such as various postures that have certain aesthetic values or meanings. Reliefs in the form of noble human beings such as hermits, kings and noble women, nymphs or beings who attain a divine degree of holiness, such as Tara, are often depicted in Tribhanga body positions. This body position is called a triple curve, which is a slight curve or incline at the neck, hips and ankles with the body weight resting only on one leg, while the other leg is bent at rest. This flexible body position implies elegance, for example the figure of the angel Surasundari who stands in a Tribhanga posture while holding a long-stemmed lotus. The reliefs of Borobudur feature many pictures, such as human figures, whether aristocrats, commoners, or hermits, various plants and animals, as well as presenting the traditional vernacular forms of the archipelago. Borobudur is like a book that records various aspects of the life of the ancient Javanese people of the Nusantara native civilization. Relief does not describe the biography of the young man Siddhartha Gautama. There is a nuns and academic Thailand who researched reliefs and matched with the glorious biography of Siddhartha Gautama. But the result of the Bhikkhuni stated that only 50% corresponded, the rest he did not understand. Many archaeologists study past life in ancient Java and the archipelago by observing and referring to the relief carving of Borobudur. Researchers have observed the form of houses on stilts, barns, palaces and temples, forms of jewelry, clothing and weapons, various plants and wildlife, as well as means of transportation. One of them is a famous relief depicting the Borobudur ship. This typical archipelago wooden ship shows ancient maritime culture. The replica of the ark made based in the Borobudur relief is stored in the Samudra Raksa Museum, which is located north of Borobudur. So it is obvious that the east side is the real, main, ascending staircase and leads to the top of the temple, meaning that the temple faces east even though the other sides are similar. The reliefs are in a row of stairs on the south side, after passing 27 relief frames starting from the east side of the stairs. The 27 frames depict busyness, both in heaven and in the world. The reliefs are 120 frames. The statue, Borobudur, there are many statues sitting cross-legged in a certain symbolic hand gesture. This 1.5 meter high statue is carved from andesite stone. The sculptures in the recesses of this level are arranged in rows on the outer side of the balustrade. The number is decreasing on the upper side. The first row of balustrades consists of 104 niches, the second row 104 niches, the third row 88 recesses, the fourth row 72 recesses, and the fifth row 64 niches. These statues are not the noble ones Siddhartha Gautama. But this is a visualization of spiritual contemplation of the teachings of the ancient Indonesian archipelago, which was also followed by Siddhartha Gautama. In total, there are 432 statues at the Wana Pangka Tengah level, the dwelling place for humans and other creatures, the middle of the temple. In the Wana Nyungkung section, the Sanghyang curse's place of residence, the part which is located at the very top of the temple. 3 circular courts, the statues are placed in Terawang perforated stupas. In the first circular courtyard there are 32 stupas, the second court 24 stupas, and the third courtyard there are 16 stupas, a total of 72 stupas. Of the original number of 504 statues, more than 300 have been damaged, mostly headless, and 43 are missing, since the discovery of this monument. Heads are frequently stolen as collectibles, mostly by foreign museums. At first glance, all these statues look similar, but there are subtle differences between them, namely the position of the hand posture. There are 5 groups: north, east, south, west, and central, all based in the 5 main directions of the compass. The 4 balustrades have 4 tapa positions: north, east, south, and west, where each statue facing this direction displays a distinctive feature. The statue on the 5th balustrade and the statue inside 72 stupas Terawang in central or central court. Each symbolizes its own symbolic meaning. Mended Temple. Mended Temple is a temple located on Jalan Mayor Kusun Mungkid City, Magalang Regency, Central Java, which is located about 3 kilometers from Borobudur Temple. Mended Temple architecture. The building material for the temple is actually a brick covered with natural stone. This building is located in a high basement, so it looks more elegant and sturdy. The stairs go up and the entrance faces southwest. Above the basement there is a hallway that surrounds the temple body. The roof has 3 stories and is decorated with small stupas. The number of small stupas currently installed is 48. The height of the building is 26.4 meters. The decoration of the Mended Temple. 3 statues inside the Mended Temple, the Dhyani statue flanked by Awalokaitswara and Wajrapani. The decoration found in Mended Temple is in the form of alternating decorations. Decorated with carvings of creatures in the form of gods Gandharva and Aspara or nymphs, 2 monkeys and a Garuda. Hariti. The temple walls are decorated with reliefs including Awalokaitswara, Maitreya, Wajrapani and Manjusri. On the body wall of the temple there are reliefs of Kalpataru, 2 nymphs, Hariti, a repentant Yaksi and Adawaka. Inside the main temple, there are 3 large statues. In front of the statue, there is a relief in the shape of a wheel and flanked by a pair of deer. On the left is the Awalokaitswara Padmapani statue and on the right the Wajrapani statue. This Mended Temple has been seen by Chinese pilgrims long before this labeling is called the Buddhist temple. Pilgrims, students from China come to the archipelago to learn, to record and copy the Dharmic original books to bring to their country. Not bringing teachings from there to spread here, and Palembang is not the center of Buddhism. Fa Huan 337422, add travel notes translated and Korean notes recension from Chinese text by James Legg. The Fa Huan building with a statue in it beside a large tree is the site of Mended. Reliefs. Relief 1, Brahmana and a crab. In this relief there are paintings of animal stories, the full story is presented below. So there was a Brahmin who came from the underworld and was named Dwayeswara. He is very fond of all kinds of animals. So he went up to pray on the mountain and found a crab on the top of the mountain, named Astapada, carried in his clothes. So the Brahmin said, I took him to the river, because I felt sorry for him. So he walked and found a resting hall by the river. Then the Brahmin released the crab. The Astapada felt relieved. Meanwhile the Brahmin rested in these halls. He slept well. His heart was comfortable. Is a snake who befriends a crow and is a threat to the Brahmin. So said the snake to his friend the crow. If anyone comes here to sleep, tell me, I'm the prey. The crow saw the Brahmin sleeping in the halls. Immediately out of the snake he said, I want to prey on his eyes comrade. That's their agreement. The crab brought by the Brahmin heard. Then said the crab to himself, "Oh, how bad is the evil of the crow and the snake. He is equally bad at behaving." It occurred to him that the crab owed the Brahmin a debt of gratitude. He wants to pay off the debt, he thought. There is a strategy, I will be friends with both of them. So said the crab, oh my two friends, I will lengthen your necks, so that it will be more enjoyable if you want to eat the Brahmin. I agree with your suggestion, less than carry out greater than immediately. So said the crow and the snake both. The two of them also surrendered their necks and were pinched on the side here and there by the crab, and the two of them immediately broke up. The crow and the snake died. Relief 2, Goose and Turtle. Goose and Turtle. In this relief there are paintings of animal stories. The full story is presented below. However, the story presented below is somewhat different from the painting on this relief. There are turtles residing in Lake Kumudawati. The lake is very beautiful. Many gazebos have various colors. There are white, red and tunjung blue. There is a male-female goose, roaming around looking for food in Lake Kumudawati, where the water comes from the Manasasara lake. The name of the goose is the Kakranga, name, male goose, the Kakrangi, name, female goose. They live together in the Kumudawati lake. So it's been a long time to be friends with turtles. The Durbudi, name, is the male, while the Kakapa, name, is the female. So it is almost the dry season. The water in Lake Kumudawati is getting drier. Second goose, the Kakranga and the Kakrangi then said goodbye to their friend the tortoise, the Durbudi and the Kakapa. He said, "Oh, our comrades are asking ourselves to leave here. We want to get out of here, because the water in the lake is drying up. Especially before the dry season, we don't have the control to be far from the water. That's the reason we want to fly from here, take refuge in a lake in the Himawan mountains called Manasasana. Very pure water, clear and deep. It doesn't dry out even in the dry season. That's where we go, friends." So said the goose. So the tortoise replied, he said, "Dear friend, how much we love you, now you will leave us, trying to live your own life. Aren't we the same as you, can't be far from water? Wherever you go we will follow, in your joys and sorrows. This is the result of our friendship with you." The goose replied, "Okay tortoise. We have sense. There is wood, grab it by you in the middle, we will gnaw the ends here and there with my wife. Be strong, we will later take your flight, just don't be slack, you bite, and again don't speak. Everything we overcome while we fly you later, you should not warn either. If someone asks, don't answer. That's what you have to do, don't disobey our word. If you do not obey our instructions you will not make it to your destination, you will end up dead." So said the goose. Then the turtle bit it in the middle of the wood, pecked at the end and base by the goose, there and here, the male chant, right and left. Immediately the goose flew away, and would wander to Manasasara Lake, the destination he expected. As they flew far away, they reached the Wilangal field. So, there were male and female dogs who took shelter under the mango tree. The Nohan is the name of the male dog, the Babyan is the name of the female. So the female dog looked up, saw the goose flying, both of them were flying the turtle. Then he said, "Oh father of my child, look at that, there are things that are very impossible. Turtles flown by a pair of geese." Then the male dog replied, "It is impossible for your words. Since when have there been turtles that were carried by geese? Not the turtle but dry buffalo dung. Karu karu nest. Souvenirs for goslings. That's just how it is. Said the male dog. Heard the words of the dog by the tortoise, angry inside. His mouth trembled because it was considered dry buffalo dung, a nest of karu karu. So the tortoise's mouth gaped, let go of the wood which he cut, fell to the ground and was eaten by the male and female wolves. The goose was ashamed of not having heeded his advice. Then they continued their drift journey to Lake Manasasara. Relief 3, Dharmabuddy and Dustabuddy. Dharmabuddy and Dustabuddy. This story is about two friends of a merchant's son. One day Dharmabuddy found money and told his friend Dustabuddy. Then they both hid this money under a tree. Whenever they needed money, Dharmabuddy took a portion and divided it fairly. But Dustabuddy was not satisfied and one day took all the remaining money. He then accused Dharmabuddy and dragged him to court. But finally Dustabuddy was caught and punished. Relief 4, Two Different Parrots. Two Different Parrots. This relief depicts the story of two parrots who are brothers but differ in their behavior because one is educated by a thief, while one by a priest. Paan Temple. Candi Paan is the name of a temple, which is located in Magalang Regency. The location of Paan Temple is between Mended Temple and 8.Borobudur Temple, precisely 1,750 meters from 8.Borobudur Temple to the east and 1,150 meters from Mended Temple to the west. History and restoration. The origin of the name of Paan Temple cannot be ascertained. Epigrapher J. G. de Casparis interprets that Paan comes from the Javanese word awu, which means ash, getting a prefix pa and a suffix indicating a place. In everyday Javanese, the word Paan means kitchen, however, de Casparis defines it as furnace, or a place of ashes. The locals also mention Paan Temple by the name Bajranalan. This word probably comes from the Sanskrit words Vajra equals, which means lightning, and Anala, which means fire. Paan Temple was restored in 1903. Statues and architecture of Paan Temple. The statues are no longer found in this temple room, so it is difficult to identify them further. One thing that is interesting about this Paan Temple is its decoration. The outer walls of the temple are decorated with reliefs of living trees, Kalpataru, flanked by coffers and canary, half human, half bird, human-headed, bird-shaped creatures. Ratu Baka website. Ratu Boko site, which is on the hill south of Prambanan Temple. Ratu Baka site, or Candi Boko, Javanese. Candi Ratu Baka, is an ancient site which is a complex of remnants of buildings located approximately 3 kilometers south of the Prambanan Temple complex, 18 kilometers east of Yogyakarta city or 50 kilometers southwest of the city. Surakarta, Central Java, Indonesia. Ratu Baka site is located on a hill at an altitude of 196 meters above sea level. The total area of the complex is approximately 25 hectares. This site displays the attributes as a place of activity or a residential site, but its exact function is not yet clear. Judging from the pattern of laying the remains of the building, it is strongly suspected that this site is a former Keraton royal palace. This opinion is based in the fact that this complex is not a temple or a building with a religious character, but a fortified palace with evidence of the remains of a fortress wall and dry moat as a defensive structure. Remains of residential settlements were also found in the vicinity of this site. The name, Ratu Baka, comes from a local legend. Ratu Baka, Javanese, literally means crane king, is the father of Loro Jonggrang, who is also the name of the main temple in the Prambanan Temple complex. This building complex is associated with the local folk legend Loro Jonggrang. Administratively, this site is in the area of two hamlets, namely Duku Dawang, Bokoharjo village, and Sumberwadu hamlet, Sambirea village, Prambanan district, Sleman Regency, Yogyakarta, Indonesia. The Ratu Boko site was first reported by Van Boekelst in 1790, who stated that there were archaeological ruins on the hill of Ratu Boko. This hill itself is a branch of the Siwu mountain system, which stretches from the south of Yogyakarta to the Tulungagung area. 100 years later, research led by FDK Bosch was carried out, which was reported in Keraton Van Rado Boko. From this it is concluded that the ruins are the remains of the palace. Also found statues of Durga, Ganesha and Yoni. In this complex there is a former gate, Paseban room, pond, pendopo, pringidan, Keputran, and 2 cave niches for meditation. The specialty of Ratu Boko site, unlike other ancient relics from the ancient Javanese era which are generally in the form of religious buildings, the Ratu Boko site is a profane complex, complete with entrance gates, pavilions, residences, bathing pools, and protective fences. In contrast to other palaces in Java which are generally established in relatively sloping areas, the Ratu Boko site is located on a fairly high hill. This makes the building complex relatively more difficult to construct from the point of view of procuring labor and building materials. The exception is of course if the main building material, namely stone, is taken from the hill area itself. This of course requires that the workers are trained in processing the rock into blocks that can be used as building materials. The position on this hill also requires a spring and a water management system that can meet daily needs. The bathing pool is a legacy of this regulatory system, the rest is a challenge for archaeologists to reconstruct it. The position on the hill also provides cool air and beautiful natural scenery for the occupants, besides of course making this complex more difficult for opponents to attack. Another feature of this site is that there is a place to the left of the gate which is now commonly called the Cremation Place. Given its size and position, it is inevitably a place to show something or an activity. The name, Cremation Place, implies that there should be regular cremation activities in this place which need further investigation. It may be worth considering investigating this place as a kind of altar or place of offerings. The gate of the Ratu Boko Palace site consists of 2 Padaraksa-shaped buildings with the top of the building roof in the shape of a pearl and functions as the main entrance gate. Gopura is made of andesite stone, but floors, stairs and fences are made of white stone. Gate I measures 12.15 meters, 6.90 meters wide, 5.05 meters high and has 3 entrances. Gopura II measures 18.60 meters long, 9 meters wide and 4.5 meters high, has 5 entrances. Combustion Temple and Holy Well, made of andesite stone measuring 22.60 meters long, 22.30 meters wide and 3.82 meters high. This designation is based on the discovery of ashes in the temple wells so that people assumed that this building in the past was a place for burning or storing the ashes of the king's corpse. Upon closer examination, the ash was left over from wood burning and there was no indication that it was bone burnt. The well is 2.30 meters by 1.80 meters in size. The water depth in the dry season is about 2 meters, while the well is about 5 meters from the ground. In the past, water from this well was used in religious ceremonies at burning temples. A temple must be built in a place where there is a water source, and if it is not available then a water storage area is made. Prambanan Temple. Prambanan Temple or Loro Jonggrang Temple is the largest temple complex in Indonesia. This temple is dedicated to Trimurti, the 3 main gods, namely Brahma as the creator god, Vishnu as the god of preservation, and Shiva as the god of destruction. Based on the Siwagra inscription, the original name of this temple complex is Siwagra, Sanskrit, which means Shiva's house, and indeed in the Garbhagriha, main room, of this temple resides a 3-meter tall Shiva Mahadeva statue which shows that in this temple Lord Shiva is preferred. This temple complex is located in Prambanan subdistrict, Sleman and Prambanan subdistrict, Klaten, approximately 17 kilometers northeast of Yogyakarta, 50 kilometers southwest of Surakarta and 120 kilometers south of Semarang, right on the border between the provinces of Central Java and the Yogyakarta Special Region. Prambanan Temple is located in the administrative area of the village of Bokoharjo, Prambanan, Sleman, while the entrance to the Prambanan Temple complex is located in the administrative area of the village of Tilogo, Prambanan, Klaten. The main temple has a height of up to 47 meters towering in the middle of a complex of smaller temples. Etymology. The name Prambanan comes from the name of the village where the temple stands, allegedly a change in the name of the Javanese dialect from the original Dharmic theology term Para Brahman which means great Brahman, namely Brahman or the highest and greatest immortal reality that cannot be described, which is often equated with the concept of God in Dharmic teachings. Another opinion thinks the Brahman might refer to the heyday of this temple which was once filled with Brahmins. Another opinion proposes that the name, Prambanan, comes from the Javanese root word emban, which means to bear or assume duties. The original name of this temple complex is the name from Sanskrit, Sivagraha, house of Shiva, or Sivalaya, Alam Siva. Trimurti is glorified in this temple complex with three main temples glorifying Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. However, Shiva Mahadeva, who occupies the main room of the Shiva Temple, is the most glorified deity in this temple complex. The local Javanese residents around the temple have oral stories regarding the temple, namely the story of a giant king, thousands of temples built by ghosts of jinn and Dedemites in just one night, and a beautiful princess who was cursed to become a statue. The legend about Prambanan Temple is known as the story of Rarajongrang. Temple Complex. Architectural model reconstruction of the Prambanan Temple complex. Originally there were 240 temples standing in this complex. The entrance to this building complex is located in the four cardinal directions, but the direction facing this building is to the east, so the main entrance of this temple is the east gate. The Prambanan Temple complex consists of 3 Trimurti temples, Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma temples, 3 Vahana temples, Nandi, Garuda, and Angsa temples. 2 Kandi Apat, located between the rows of Trimurti temples and Vahana temples on the north and south sides. 4 Kandi Kelir, located in the 4 cardinal directions just behind the entrance to the inner courtyard or core zone. 4 Kandi Patak, located on the 4 corners of the inner courtyard or core zone. 224 Purwara temples, arranged in 4 concentric rows with the number of temples from the innermost to the outer rows, 44, 52, 60, and 68. Then there are a total of 240 temples in the Prambanan complex. Originally there were 240 large and small temples in the Prambanan Temple complex. But now there are only 18 temples left, namely 8 main temples and 8 small temples in the core zone and 2 ancillary temples. There are many ancillary temples that have not been restored. Of the 224 ancillary temples, only 2 have been restored, the only remaining is a scattered pile of stones. The Prambanan Temple complex consists of 3 zones. The first is the outer zone, the second is the middle zone, which consists of hundreds of temples, the third is the inner zone, which is the holiest zone where the 8 main temples and 8 small shrines. The planned section of the Prambanan Temple complex is based on a square area consisting of 3 parts or zones, each of which is bordered by andesite stone walls. The outer zone is marked by a square fence, each side is 390 meters long, with a northeast-southwest orientation. Except for the southern gate that is still left, many other parts of the gate and the walls of this temple have been missing. The exact function of this outer page is unknown. Maybe in the past the building that stood in the outer courtyard was made of wood, so that it was rotten and nothing was left. In this temple complex, Shiva took precedence and more honor than the other 2 Trimurti gods. Shiva Temple is the main building as well as the largest and highest, towering as high as 47 meters. Shiva Temple, the main temple in the Prambanan Temple complex dedicated to Lord Shiva. Durga Mahishasuramardini statue in the northern room of the Shiva Temple. The inner courtyard is the holiest zone of the 3 zones of the temple complex. This court is elevated its surface and laid out in a square enclosed by a stone fence with 4 gates in the 4 cardinal directions. In this sand-faced courtyard there are 8 main temples, namely the 3 main temples called the Trimurti Temple, 3 forms, dedicated to the 3 supreme gods, Lord Brahma the creator, Vishnu the preserver, and Shiva the destroyer. Indian Hindu version destroyer. Shiva Temple is the main temple is the largest and highest building in the Rarajongrang Temple complex, measuring 47 meters high and 34 meters wide. The peak of the mastaka or the peak of this temple is crowned with a modification of the shape of the Vajra which symbolizes diamond or lightning. Shiva Temple is surrounded by gallery aisles decorated with reliefs telling the story of the Ramayana, engraved on the inner wall of the balustrade. Above this ledge, there is a line of peaks that are also shaped like Vajra. To follow the story in sequence, visitors must enter from the east side, then take a roundabout walk around the temple clockwise. The story of the Ramayana is continued to the Brahma Temple. In the middle of Shiva Temple, contains 5 rooms, 1 room in each direction of the wind and 1 garbhagriha, which is the main and largest room located in the middle of the temple. The eastern room is connected to the main room where there is a 3-meter-tall statue of Shiva Mahadeva, the embodiment of Shiva as the supreme god residing. This statue has Lakhana, attribute or symbol, of Shiva, namely Chandrakapala. Skull over a crescent Jatamakuta, crown of majesty, and Trinetra, third eye, on his forehead. This statue has 4 arms which hold Shiva's attributes, such as Aksamala, prayer beads, Kamara, fly-repelling horse tail, and trident. This statue wears an apada, cast rope, in the form of a dragon snake cobra. Shiva is depicted wearing a loincloth made of tiger skin, depicted with the carving of a tiger's head, claws and tail on his thigh. This Shiva Mahadeva statue stands on a lotus flower mat on a yoni-shaped square platform on which the serpent Naga cobra is carved on its northern side. The other 3 smaller chambers hold statues of a smaller size that are associated with Shiva. In the south room there is Resi Agastya, Ganesha, the son of Shiva in the west room, and in the north room there is a statue of the magic or Shiva's wife, Durga Mahisasuramardini, depicting Durga as the exterminator of Mahisasura, the ox giant who attacks Swargaloka. This Durga statue is also known as Rara Jongrang, Slender Virgin, by the local population. This statue is associated with the legendary princess, Rara Jongrang. Brahma Temple and Vishnu Temple. 2 other temples are dedicated to Lord Vishnu, which is located on the north side, and the other is dedicated to Brahma, which is on the south side. These 2 temples face east and there is only one room, which is dedicated to these gods. Brahma Temple keeps a statue of Brahma and Vishnu Temple has a statue of Vishnu which is almost 3 meters high. The size of the Brahma and Vishnu temples is the same, namely 20 meters wide and 33 meters high. Wahana Temple. Garuda Temple, one of the rides temples. Right in front of the Trimurti Temple there are 3 smaller temples than the Brahma and Vishnu temples which are dedicated to the vehicles or rides of these gods. The ox Nandi rides Shiva, the swan rides Brahma, and the Garuda rides Vishnu. These vehicle temples are located right in front of the rider god. This is not Indian Hindu temple. This is the work of the ancestors of the Indonesian archipelago, the original Indonesian archipelago, whose teachings spread to 3/4 of the Earth's surface, which underlies the birth of Hindu Buddhism Jaina in India. Brought by the Brahmin outside the archipelago, this is what is called the Teachings of Brahmanism before the Veda was recorded in India. Hinduism is the amalgamation or synthesis of various traditions and cultures in India. Synthesis arose around 500 to 200 BC in India, with diverse roots and no founding figures growing side by side with Buddhism until the 8th century. From North India, Hindu synthesis, it spread south. Late 18th century, Hindu became the equivalent term for Indian, who was not Muslim, not Sikh, not Jaina, not Christian, not Buddhist, encompassing different adherents and practitioners of different traditional beliefs. The term Hindu as an antonym to other beliefs, then the word Hindu, with the addition of the ism ending was added around the 1830s to refer to culture and religion. The term was accepted by Indians themselves in terms of development national identity to oppose colonialism. Hinduism, as a gathering place for various coherent and independent traditions, was supported by the Sanskritization of the 19th century under the dominance of Western colonialism and Indology. From now on the term Hinduism is widely used. In short, in India before the 9th century AD, a formal teaching named was born in India to distinguish not the 2 religions born in the 5th century BC Buddhism. Jaina was also not Islam based on Veda. From Hinduism is Brahmanism. Old Vedic teachings are based on Vedic, brought by the Saka Kakya Kaka Aryan, meaning this understanding was brought by immigrants. These immigrants were humans who came from the archipelago, grandmothers are ancestors. The text of the Mahabharata Udyoga Parva 108 can be interpreted and even concluded that the East was the origin of teachings, before being recorded as a book called Veda, a location designated as East. This is where the creator of the universe first time singing Veda. It means the literacy of the word East in the above quotation as Southeast Asia. Nusantara Indonesia. This is where the Dharmic original Teachings originated and were studied long before the existence of teachings that were born in India. So, the root of Hinduism is Brahmanism. Ancient Vedic teachings are based on Vedic, which was brought by the Saka, Kakya, Aryan. The text literacy of the word Kakya is written on the bas-relief of Borobudur. Now it cannot be seen because it is closed. Not for technical reasons, it wanted to collapse, and after it was published there was a relief, porn. Kaka are the ancestors of the archipelago, written on the bas-reliefs of Wana Kaka Phala, Borobudur, with the literary text of the word Mahachakya, nation Kakya, Sakya, Shaitya, Saka, Great Aryan. The Kaka already existed far from 78 AD from the time of conquering the King Indian, Salivahana. This 78 AD figure is misinterpreted to calculate the beginning of the Saka year in the inscription. Various new cultural practices such as ritual sacrifices, which all form the basis of the early Hindu Veda culture, the basis of which is the teaching of our ancestors. Dharmak is Dharma, Dhamma, Dhammo, recorded in the literacy of the word Kusaladharmabhajana in the bas-relief figure of Borobudur. Wana Chaka Phala is now published named Borobudur. There are 160 panels on the bas-reliefs of Borobudur which are now not exposed to the language and teachings that underlie the original teachings of our ancestors, not from India. The 12 words, Svarga, are not, Nirvana, Nibbana, and the other words are Kusaladharmabhajana and Mahachakya, proves that in this land the original Dharma teachings originated now perfectly preserved in Bali. In the past brought by our ancestors, the Kaka, Saka, Kakya, Arya left the Indonesian archipelago. Raffles named this magnificent building by name Budur, assuming that near the site there is a village, Bor. In fact, there is no village called Bor. Budur, in Javanese, means ancient. The Javanese meaning of Bidur is boils. Johannes Jaespertus Casparus, Dutch philologist, writing in his 1954 dissertation, estimated its construction to be around 824 AD. These estimates are not the result of conclusions based on academic scientific research. The books that are said to underlie the design of this building are Shilpa Shastra and Vastu Sastra from India. In fact, all of these books only existed in the 5th century AD. This magnificent building had already existed before. The basic relief, which is not exposed, is published with the name Karmawibanga, using the interpretation of the Mahakarmawibanga manuscript, but does not fully follow the text. Burnett Kemper's 1970, 151 and 1976. Borobudur, published based in the Mahayana, India, really. When Bhikkhu Ashin Jinarakita came up with the idea of holding a national Trisuki Waisak ceremony at Borobudur on May 22, 1953, from now on, Borobudur, published, based on Mahayana. A nun, also a Thai academic, concluded that only 50% conforms to the biography of Siddhartha Gautama and the rest he does not understand. In the archipelago in the 4th to 7th centuries AD, it was not recorded that Indian missionaries came to the archipelago. Chinese pilgrims who came to the archipelago were to study and record the Dharmic original teachings that had existed for a long time in the archipelago, not to bring teachings from his country were spread to the archipelago. Palembang was not the center of Buddhist teachings. Chinese pilgrims who came to the archipelago to study and record the teachings of the archipelago, which were brought to their country. Fa Huan 337-422, add travel notes translated and annotated by Korean recension of Chinese text by James Legge. The Fa Huan building with a statue in it beside a large tree is the site of Mended filled circle in 399 to 414 AD. Fa Huan on a journey in Svarnadvipa noted, following the river Po Nai, is the river Panay, Kampar, in a place where students had lived there and made movements, walking in a circle around the tope stupa, as well as 4 teachers sitting in 4 corners. In this place the tower has been erected. Pradaksina Prasawiya Tawaf in Muaratakas. Sung Yun 518 to 521 AD records the existence of a power which he calls Saka K satrapas, from the identification of coins which are thought to have existed around 225 AD with the image of Tope, or the Maurataka stupa. In the years 602-664 AD, Hyan Sang recorded what he saw in Svarnadvipa. Beside it was a stupa built by the king, about 200 feet high, nearby as a sign where the Tathagata walked to here and there. Filled Circle Wei Ning 664 AD 667 AD traveled for 3 years on the island of Java to translate a sutra, on the understanding of life after death, in this archipelago called Svarga, translation assisted by a Javanese scholar named Jnanabhadra, Svarga, instead of Nirvana. Filled Circle I Sing or Yi Jing, 671-695 AD. A traveler from China who came to the archipelago 3 times departing from Guangzhou sailing 20 days for 10 years in Sriwijaya 685-695 AD, he stayed for 6 months in Sriwijaya 2 months in Malayu to study. Filled Circle in Svarnadvipa Nusantara in an even older era. Long before the Vedic era 6500 BC there was a teaching that was adopted, namely, Dharma, the original teachings of the archipelago of our ancestors Saka. This is where the initial source of the original Dharmic teachings, then in the era after, the pioneer figures were recorded. Filled Circle Sanjaya, Filled Circle Sariputra, Filled Circle Dharmadasa 700-620 BC, Filled Circle Dharmapala 670-580 BC, Filled Circle Svarnadvipa Dharmakirti 610 BC 520 BC, Filled Circle Kumarila Bada I 618-540 BC, Filled Circle Adi Sankara 569-537 BC, Filled Circle Kri Janayasa 6th century AD. They are Putra Nusantara pioneers of Dharmic original, whose landmark in Muotakui is now published. Mauratakas is the center of advanced civilization before 78 AD who built sites in the archipelago as well as Nalanda in Indian Bihar later named Srivijaya with his character Sailendra. So, it is true that Hindu Buddhist originates from India and it is not true that the sites in the Indonesian archipelago are based on Hindu Buddhist from India, which are perfectly preserved in Balinese culture and reflected on the site is the teachings that underlie the birth of Hinduism, Buddhism and Jainas were brought by the Kaka, Saka, Kakya, Arya of our ancestors outside the Indonesian archipelago. In front of the Shiva Temple there is the Nandi Temple, in which there is a statue of Nandi's ox. On the wall behind the statue of Nandi, on the left and right flank the statues of Chandra, the moon god and Surya, the sun god. Chandra is depicted standing on a chariot drawn by 10 horses, while Surya standing on a chariot drawn by 7 horses. Right in front of the Brahma Temple is the Angsa Temple. This temple is empty and there is no goose statue in it. Maybe there was a goose statue as Brahma's vehicle in it. In front of the Vishnu Temple, there is a temple dedicated to Garuda, but just like the Angsa Temple, there is no Garuda statue in this temple. Maybe in the past the Garuda statue was in this temple. Kandi Appat, Kandi Kellier, and Kandi Patak. In between the 6 rows of the main temples is Kandi Appat. The size of Appat Temple is almost the same as the size of the Prawara Temple, which is 14 meters high with a floor plan of 6 by 6 meters. Besides these 8 main temples, there is a small temple in the form of a small shrine, as well as a shrine in front of the entrance. These small temples are 4 Kellier temples on the 4 cardinal directions in front of the entrance, and 4 Patak temples at each corner. Kandi Kellier and Kandi Patak are in the form of miniature temples without stairs with a height of about 2 meters. Prawara Temple, 2 walls with a square enclosing 2 inner courtyards, arranged in an orientation according to the 4 cardinal directions. The second wall measures 225 meters on each side. Between these 2 walls is the second courtyard or second zone. The second zone consists of 224 ancillary temples arranged in 4 concentric rows. These temples are built on 4 terraces which are getting to the middle a little higher. The 4 rows of these temples are smaller than the main temple. These temples are called Prawara temples, namely guard temples or complementary temples. The ancillary temples are arranged in 4 concentric rows. The innermost row consists of 44 temples, the second row is 52 temples, the third row is 60 temples, and the fourth row as well as the outermost row consists of 68 temples. Each of these Prawara temples is 14 meters high with a floor plan of 6 by 6 meters, and the total number of ancillary temples in this courtyard is 224 temples. All these ancillary temples have one ladder and the entrance is in the direction facing the main, except for the 16 temples in the corner which have 2 stairs and the entrance is facing in 2 outward directions. If most of the roofs of the temples in the inner courtyard of the core zone are in the form of Vajra, then the roof of the ancillary temples is in the shape of a pearl which symbolizes gems. Originally there were many temples on this page, but only a few have been restored. The shape of this ancillary temple is designed uniformly. Historians suspect that these temples were financed and built by local rulers as a token of devotion and offerings to the king. While there is an opinion that connects the 4 rows of ancillary temples to symbolize the 4 castes, and only people who are members of that caste are allowed to enter and worship in them. The innermost row is only entered by the Brahmin caste, the next to the outermost row is the line of temples for Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. Meanwhile, other parties consider that there is no connection between the ancillary temples and the 4 castes. The rows of ancillary temples may be used for worship, or as a place for meditation for priests and their followers. Prambanan has the original name Sivagra and is designed to resemble Shiva's house, which follows the form of the holy mountain Mahameru, where the gods reside. At the time of restoration, just below the Shiva statue under the main room of the Shiva temple there is a well on which there is a pripa, stone box. This well is 5.75 meters deep and the pripa stone coffin was found on a heap of charcoal, soil, and the bones of the victim's animal. Inside the pripa, there are sacred objects such as gold sheets with characters that read Varuna, sea god, and Parvata, mountain god. In this stone chest, there are copper sheets mixed with charcoal, ash, and earth, 20 ancient coins, several gems, glass, pieces of gold, and silver sheets, shells, and 12 gold sheets, 5 of which are shaped like turtles, dragon snakes, cobra, lotus, altar and egg. Relief in Prambanan shows Shinta being kidnapped by Ravana who is riding a giant winged, while the Jatayu bird in the upper left tries to help Shinta. Panel is typical of Prambanan, a lion in a niche flanked by 2 kalpataru trees, each flanked by a pair of kanari or a pair of wildlife. Ramayana and Krishnayana. This temple is decorated with narrative reliefs that tell Ramayana and Krishnayana. The relief tells that it was carved on the inner wall of the balustrade along the gallery aisles that surround the 3 main temples. The relief is read from right to left in a clockwise motion around the temple, that is, around the building clockwise. The story of Ramayana begins on the east side of the Shiva temple and continues to the Brahma temple. On the balustrade of Vishnu's temple there is a narrative relief of Krishnayana which tells of the life of Krishna as one of Vishnu's avatars. The Ramayana relief depicts how Shinta, Rama's wife, was kidnapped by Ravana. The commander of the Wanara monkey nation, Hanuman, came to Alanka to help Rama find Shinta. This story is also featured in the Ramayana Ballet, a Javanese puppet show that is regularly staged on the Trimurti Open stage every full moon night. The backdrop for the Trimurti stage is a magnificent view of the 3 main temples illuminated by lights. Lokapala, Brahmana, and Dewata. Across the narrative relief panels, on the walls of the temple body along the gallery are decorated with statues and reliefs depicting Brahmin gods and sages. Statues of the Lokapala gods, the heavenly gods guarding the cardinal directions, can be found in Shiva Temple. While the para statues are found in the Brahma Temple. In the Vishnu Temple there is a deity statue flanked by 2 apsaras or heavenly aspara. Prambanan panel. Lion and Kalpataru. On the outer wall under the temple is decorated by a row of niches, which hold a lion statue flanked by 2 panels depicting the Kalpataru tree. This sacred tree is considered a tree that can fulfill human hopes and needs. At the foot of the Kalpataru tree are flanked by pairs of kanari, magical animals with the body of a human-headed bird, or other animal pairs, such as birds, deer, sheep, monkeys, horses, elephants, and others. The pattern of the lion flanked by Kalpataru is a distinctive pattern found only in Prambanan, hence the name, Panel Prambanan. Other temples around Prambanan, temples and ancient sites around the Kewu Plain. Shiva Temple, a temple that is part of Prambanan Park, is associated with the legend of Rara Jongrang. The Kewu Plain or Prambanan Plain is a fertile plain that stretches between the southern slopes of Mount Merapi in the north and the limestone mountains of Siwu in the south, near the border of Yogyakarta and Klaten, central Java. Apart from the Prambanan temples, the valleys and plains around Prambanan are rich in archaeological remains of the earliest temples in Indonesian history. Prambanan Temple is surrounded by other temples. Still in the ancient tourist park complex, not far to the north of the Prambanan Temple are the ruins of the Lumbung Temple and the Bubra Temple. Further north there is Siwu Temple, the second largest temple after Borobudur. Further to the east is the Playosan Temple. To the west of Prambanan there are Kalasan and Sari temples. Meanwhile, to the south, there is Sojiwan Temple, Ratu Baka site which is located on the hills, as well as Banyunabo Temple, Barong Temple, and Iho Temple. The discovery of so many historical relics in the form of temples which are only a few hundred meters away from each other, shows that the area around Prambanan was an important area in ancient times. Areas that have important values in terms of religion, politics, economy and culture. In the current mainstream historical record, all of the above temples are called Hindu temples. Only because there is no statue of a person sitting cross-legged. Likewise, the great rishis of the ancient Indonesian archipelago were considered to be from India. Including Markandeya receipt. Rishi Markandeya. This is a clarification of what is written in the public today in an effort to restore the country's historical record which is written, reversed, in order to arouse the confidence of the nation's children, that we are not importers of other people's cultures, but we are the ones who color it. Currently written and published the original teachings of the archipelago started by the Indian rishis, Markandeya. Agastya. Really? Who? Rshi Markandeya. Let's take a look. Rshi Markandeya, referring to the Sanskrit Mahabharata epic consisting of 100,000 slokas over 2,000 years old is associated with the name Markandeya, Mahabharata 2.8-2.70. Listed about the name Markandeya, continually with the word, Tirtha. Markandeya, who was blessed by Vishnu, performed many tapasya at Tirtha. This was where Agnya rested after dividing Jambudvipa among his 9 sons. From the above quotation it can be understood that the name, Markandeya, has been around for thousands of years and is written in the book, Mahabharata. This name will be used by the Rshi in the next era. Then it says, Tirtha. This word is a word that has existed for a long time in the previous archipelago. The word, Tirtha comes from the word, stati, rtha. Stati equals sustainable, nurturing, rtha equals truth, righteous life. The word rtha is often used for the word, Kirtha. Religion in Bali was originally called, Religion of Tirtha, later became, Hindu Bali, this new name in, paste, in 1950. Quotation. Mahabharata. The next word is, Jambudvipa. Salagrama where Agnya rested in old age after dividing, Jambudvipa, among his 9 sons. Jambudvipa. This name and location is in the Indonesian archipelago at the foot of the mountain Barangrang as listed in the area, Jambudvipa, as the valley supporting, Mount Sunda Purba, or sometimes called, Mount Agung Batara Guru. Is there a literacy of the word, Jambu, as well as this named location in India? Rshi Markandeya was in Bali around the 9th century AD, while Mpu Najaya written in, Babad Pasek, is one of the 5 priests known as, Penka Tirtha, namely Mpu Najaya, Mpu Semaru, Mpu Gana, Mpu Kucharan and Mpu Brata. The existence of Mpu Kucharan and Mpu Brata in Bali around the 11th century AD, all of the Arshas above are native to the archipelago. Rshi Markandeya is written in public as well by Swami Veda Bharati from India, or in the public it is often written as, South India. Is it true? Note again, it is written in the verse, Buana Tatwa, about Maharshi Markandeya. Sang Iadi Mawang Sang Niada on Sira Neat Listu Perfect, Wikaksanang Aji, Wibuing Main Literature. The Ayati continued in the footsteps of his ancestors to become a hermit. He had the son of the Prana, as well as his younger brother named Sangniyata, the son of Marakanda. After he grew up, the wife of Marakanda was goddess Manaswini, the son of Maharshi Markandeya. Then Maharshi Markandeya married Dewi Dumara, sent down Maharshi Diwasara, who was married to Dewi Waipari, who then sent down many sons. Is there a name above that name India? Or is there an Indian source that mentions the complete lineage of the name Maharshi Markandeya, who is the father, mother and wife, complete as above? So, it is true that Rshi Markandeya is a son of the archipelago. Not only his name is also the key proof that he is an archipelago, because Rishi Markandeya planted Penka Dhatu at Pura Penataran Basaki. Also Rshi Agastya performed many rituals of Tirtha religion in Bali. This is proof behavior and procedures of the archipelago, because this does not exist in India. Plus there is a regulation there which is not written that saints do not generally take their teachings outside the region. The Dutch have played a role in Indian, Bali, bringing Indians to Bali. Caste, Bali 1910. Because of this influence many Balinese people in 1930 studied in India. Balinese intellectuals and academics conclude Bali is more perfect, says the philosopher Rabindranath Tagore. Rshi Markandeya was a son of the archipelago among the names of his previous ancestors. Not in historical records at this time. Because it is impossible to have our historical records before the year 78 AD. This is due to the calculation of the beginning of the Saka year in the inscriptions starting that year, and our history before that year was published. Primitive. Humans adhere to animism, dynamism. This is not true. Also, it is not true that the Majapahit rites fled to Bali. Sri Janayasa did Siddhayatra, holy journey bringing Dharma to Bali. The Srivijaya archipelago kingdom, Majapahit, Pajajaran prohibited collecting taxes in Bali. Here, Dharmic original is perfectly preserved. Sri Janayasa Dapuntha Hyang, 6th century 4th year 11th day did Siddhayatra, namely, holy journey, carrying Dharma, as well as alumni graduates from Dharmapala University. This is the location that is seen in Ithizing century 7m. Sri Janayasa went to the north as well as to the west with 2,213 people. This is what Rshi Markandeya did to Bali. Rshi Markandeya created the Subak irrigation system in Bali. Is there any Subak in India? The historical record of this country is written, reversed, it is we who color India. Borobudur is an archipelago temple, not founded by the Sailendra nation. Not also designed by Gunadharma architects. And do not adhere to Hindu or Buddhist teachings who were born in India. Borobudur book is not a temple. Sections 8 to 9. Santo Saba works. Created as a discourse to scientists based on subjective academic studies and studies, this needs to be re-examined by experts in their fields. In an effort to restore the true history of Indonesia. INDONÄSIARYÄ. By Santo Saba. Exploration and research. Complete info. Waatsap to +62813 2132 9787.